Hi, if you or your children are suffering because of your relationship with your ex partner, because it's stressed or strained, or maybe they're just not a nice person, this show is for you. Welcome to the High Conflict Co Parenting Podcast with Brooke Olson and Charlie Jewett. Enjoy another episode now. Hey, everybody, welcome to episode 10 of the High Conflict Co Parenting Podcast with Brooke Olson and Charlie Jewett. This week we're going to talk about dating, kind of, or having a new partner, or when the spouses or the exes or you move on and find someone new in your life, which is good. It's probably good news, but it does create some stress and some issues, especially if you're dealing with one of these, personality disorders, Brooke, a narcissist or a, borderline personality. They don't necessarily love it when we find a new partner. Is that right?
Well, it's not just the people with the personality disorders. I mean, this is really a part of what happens when we break up, when we start to change who we're with and what we're doing. And all of the attachment styles that we've talked about in previous episodes come forward, and there is a process to it. But sometimes this process gets stuck, and we've got to find ways to really reorient to them, to us, help our children reorient to what's taking place so they can move on. And then when we do put in the personality disorders, the strong traded attachment styles in these directions, things get more sticky, and we have to really start to pay attention to what we're doing in a much closer, much more scheduled way, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'm sorry I always have these crude analogies, but like the normal person who's super healthy and nothing's going on emotionally, they're just a stable normal person. If they get their arm chopped off, they're going to have a hard time with that. That's hard to adjust your life. But if you're already in a deep depression and lose an arm, you're going to react much stronger, right? So we're talking about kind of the same thing. It's going to be hard for most people when there's another person in the picture, another sort of father or mother figure in your kids' lives. But if one side already has some issues or some personality disorders, they're probably going to react even worse. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. That's absolutely accurate.
So I don't know how much you know about my story, but my father left my mom when I was 2, so I don't really have a memory of that sort of separation. Just kind of we were a divorced family. That's all I ever knew. It was like every other weekend I saw my dad, and he lived about 2 hours away. But I did see him marry someone and then get divorced and then marry someone new. And then in the middle of 7th grade, my mom married somebody who came into the picture. And honestly, all of those were pretty hard, for me as a kid. And that's the kind of stuff we're talking about, right? When somebody new kind of jumps in the picture.
Absolutely. And for the children, the bonding process doesn't stop with the parents. They bond with the new parents, and that's healthy. But when that bond is consistently broken because a parent doesn't have the ability to stay in relationship and they have multiple long-term partners, it gets really difficult for the child as well.
I would imagine that would be really difficult and confusing. And I didn't see this because my mom didn't do a whole lot of heavy dating or serious relationships between when I was 2 and when I was in the middle of 7th grade. It just kind of was, 1 or 2 people that she dated, and then all of a sudden there was somebody she was marrying. I would bet there's people out there that the kids have bonded to someone and then they break up and they lose them. They bond to someone else, they break up, they lose them, and they're experiencing loss after loss after loss.
Right, and it creates an attachment style that's headed into their own lives that is either that anxious piece or that avoidant piece of, I'm not going to attach to somebody because this is painful. I'm just going to stay back, and that's one of the things that happens in that area as well.
So I may be out of order the way we want to cover this, but I like to keep the show, spontaneous and natural and honest. What does this mean, or what category does this fit in? So my girlfriend that I've been with, we're basically married but not married. The new woman in her ex's life has never acknowledged her, never once said hello, never looked in her eyes, certainly is not willing to co-parent or kind of tag team on let's be great moms and take care of these kids. Just refuses to even acknowledge the existence of my girlfriend. What's that? What's going on there?
Well, my guess is, Charlie, and you can correct me if I'm wrong in this, but your girlfriend and her ex are not in a easy breakup. They're not co-parenting well. There is um, a high conflict custody battle that's going on. Correct?
Yeah, it's definitely not a peaceful co-parenting relationship where it's like, listen, it just didn't work out. I think you're amazing. I think you're amazing. Let's like do the best. It was very contentious, and to some degree remains contentious every time there's any contact. Which, part of the reason we did the show on Our Family Wizard is because we have to keep having contact to some degree, right? At
Right.
least at some level.
So what's happened with her, um, with your girlfriend's ex's girlfriend or partner, if you will?
That's easy to
Um,
say.
exactly. Let's not do that too many times. Is that she has bonded in the battle with her partner and demonized your partner, or demonized your partner.
Right.
It's getting convoluted here, isn't it? And that's, she doesn't know anything about her. She doesn't know anything about what's going on in that arena, and yet this is what she has chosen to do in terms of setting up the conflict with your girlfriend, right?
Yeah. Yeah. She sort of just joined the took it, hook, line, and sinker, whatever I'm told, I believe. Oh, you have an enemy, that's my enemy.
Yep.
And what I'm viewing, right? What I'm picturing, or what I'm watching in my girlfriend's life, it's not super rare, is it?
It's not rare at all. It's one of the things that causes conflict all of the time. Things will be going on okay. We've broken up, we've gone on our own ways, and then the new partner comes in, and it's like, what just happened here? We were doing fine, and I've got a girlfriend, and she's not crazy, and she, is really connected, or is connecting to her children. And what's the problem here? Well, the problem could be is that she's connecting to the kids, and the parent feels threatened that this person is going to take over their role, which is ludicrous. But there's another piece to that that's really interesting sometimes, and we'll see this come around, is that they will try to take over the relationship of mother or father in that family. And that is a problem where they are overtly trying to bring the children in, and covertly or overtly getting them to bond with them and unbond and demonize the other parent, which is also a pretty ludicrous thing for somebody to try to do, but it happens all the time.
And I'd never heard of that, to be just very candid. I'd never even heard of such a concept until I heard of one family, this particular sort of like Indian/Mexican group, sort of a part of Mexico that had some sort of Indian influence, had this belief system that the woman who lived in the home and was caring for the kids was your mother. And if your mother left the home through divorce or any reason, that was no longer your mother anymore. This new woman is your mom, and you give her cards and gifts on Mother's Day and not the other mom. And that sounds so, I mean, to me, that's like ridiculous, right? So foreign. But are there cultural beliefs and sort of traditions that teach that kind of thing?
Well, I hadn't heard of that, Charlie, and clearly, that is there. But I don't think it's a natural process. I think the bonding that happens at birth and through being raised is a strong bond. And when something comes in and tries to break that bond, it's incredibly disorienting for the child, and they have a really hard time, going along with that type of a program, even in cases where there's some abuse going on.
Yeah.
The place where it takes hold, when we're in some of this, is through the alienation process and some of that stuff that's taken place prior to the breakup. But the demonization, it's really interesting. I've got a good friend of mine that is experiencing some of this with his daughters, and his daughters are grown up, And this isn't just about divorce necessarily, but he's been divorced from his ex for 30 years plus, and his children continually have judgment and a hard time when he has a new partner, and they will find a way to demonize them, and then you choose them over me. And there's this piece that happens even in those arenas years after this has taken place.
Right.
And it doesn't always have to do with the other partner. It just has to do with a belief that you left us, or you left me, and you left them for this person, so therefore that person is a bad person, and you're a bad person because you left.
Right. And I try to keep the show as real as possible to help as many people as we can, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not about me looking good, you looking good. It's just like, what's the reality? What's going on in there? My girlfriend and I have actually heard the words from one set of kids: you committed the unpardonable sin by leaving.
Right.
That's strong, man. That's strong language.
Right.
These kids.
And is that the children's statement, or is that their parents' statement?
Well, you mentioned alienization. I'm sorry if we're totally off course, but maybe it's because it needs to be, right? We'll just go where the conversation leads. I mean, we've seen 10, 11, 12-year-olds say things that no 10 or 11 or 12-year-old would ever say, right?
Right.
Things like, hey, would you guys like to go on vacation to Hawaii? And they'll say something like, no, my schooling really comes first. I really need to focus on my schooling and not go on vacation. I'm not aware of any child that would say that when offered to go to Hawaii, right?
Right.
You committed the unpardonable sin, those types of things. But no matter there's alienation on the other side. You're not going to change that. These guys are hurting. You and I do a little outline beforehand. I see this, things were bad and they just got worse. Like, is that what these kids are going through? Like, it was bad and now it's even worse?
Well, the kids are certainly experiencing that, because when you're together, there's an orientation to it's bad. And then, mom or dad gets into this grind on that other parent, that other person that's come into the other parent's life is just horrid and they're evil. And that other parent has chosen to disappear on us. They've left us and we're all alone. And there's this whole victim thing that comes along as well. And that is combined, not just with the children, but with the different perspectives of both parents on either side of that. The parent that has done that's left the relationship is demonized for leaving the relationship, and the person being left, and in this scenario that we're talking about, is playing victim, and they're bringing the children into that victim stance, and it's us against them, and it's polarizing the bond between the child and the respective parents. And it's insidious in its nature, but it is pretty normal. And when we're looking at the different attachment styles that we've talked about along the way, when we've got that attachment of the anxiety of somebody leaving, whether that's that anxious attachment or that avoidant attachment style, this is at the basis of that. And the children get stuck in the middle.
Yeah. Where we don't want them.
Where we absolutely don't want them.
No.
So, yeah, things were okay, and then they blew up. Well, what's happening in that process, sometimes when the parents are getting along, they're co-parenting, everything's going looky-ploo, and everything's progressing, sometimes that parent that was the one that was left hasn't really broken the bond yet. They're still in relationship. We talked about this before, and while they're still in relationship, you're still here and we're getting along and everything's fine. And then this new partner comes in and it's got the texture of something that could be permanent, that could really work, and it comes into that parent's mind that, oh, it's finally over. I mean, this is over.
Right.
And that's the first time that the bond's broken.
Right.
So all of the grief stuff that hasn't taken place, all the anger, the rage, the denial, the depression, all of those things that go along with grief have not occurred, and they just started. And sometimes just letting them go through that process is the end of it. But as we know with the personality disorders, there's this place where they get stuck in one of those stages of the grief process and they don't get out of it, and it stays there stuck indefinitely.
Right.
And that's where the personality disorders comes in. So when we're looking at this on the big spectrum, is we've got this place where, yeah, this may work its way out, but there's this possibility, given the history of the relationship, that it might not. And that's, that place where the breakup process has just been delayed or stalled indefinitely.
That's really interesting to me because, like, say both parties are healthy and have separated, right? They filed for divorce, and it doesn't matter if you're in a divorce or if you were, not married and dating and you're breaking up. Just you're in that process where it's over. You're living in two different places. There's that negative intimacy you talked about where the one who is left is sort of trying to reach out and stay connected, and even if it's through argument or fighting, somehow we're still a team, right? And then as soon as you introduce one of the parties introduces that third person, right? Even in a healthy relationship, if that's where the grieving process starts, we should expect some fireworks, right?
Absolutely.
And that's a healthy relationship. Those are two people who are emotionally healthy. You've talked about the 30% of divorces that are super high conflict and probably due to an emotional, whatever, some personality disorder on one of the sides. A healthy person who starts the grieving process once you find your new mate, your new partner, that's kind of normal. But if they have a personality disorder, those fireworks are going to be exaggerated, not just shooting up in the air, but like shooting at you.
Right.
And
I think everybody gets pinged when an ex-partner hooks up with somebody new and they move on. There's a place where you go, ouch.
Sure.
And ouch is normal.
Ouch is normal. That's another show. That's a podcast title right there. Ouch is normal with Brooke Olson.
Yeah.
It is normal because, like, I remember when I've had 2 divorces, right? And the first divorce, I remember a pastor telling me, divorce is more painful, or someone rejecting you, leaving you, right, is more painful than the death of a spouse, which I can't imagine a lot more painful than that. Maybe death of a child, right? They say it's more painful than the death of a spouse because someone made a decision. Yeah. Someone dies, gets hit by a car, gets murdered, whatever. They didn't choose to reject you and say, I'm not interested anymore and I'm out, right? I want someone else. They're just not here, and that hurts, right? But the rejection of someone saying, I don't want you anymore, you tried your best and it wasn't good enough, that's painful. Well, that gets triggered a second time. You leave the first time and it kind of hurts them, but they have this hope that's like an intoxicating thing. They're like, I hope it works out. I hope it works out. Maybe. And then they add the third person, the new girlfriend, the new boyfriend. Now they start that grieving process and that rejection that's more painful than somebody dying. They were told you are not good enough.
Right.
It gets bad. And then and with the personality disorder types, unfortunately, they take it out on the kids.
Yeah.
Super sad. Yet, who are we talking to? We're trying to, this podcast and the message we're putting out and the help you offer people through counseling and classes and consultations is saying, okay, let's take the worst case scenario. You've got an ex with a personality disorder who's harming the children based on their pain from you leaving or whatever.
they still have you. You're the only hope. The one parent who's sane. There still is hope, right?
Yeah, and what we've got to do is get ahead of the curve on them and stop the invasion that's taking place, and start to manage that through the connection with the kids, which is what we've talked about in an earlier podcast around how we can connect with them through positive anticipation and all of that, and just lead them into that solid relationship with us, with our new partner, or allowing them to step away and have a good relationship with the other parent and their new partner no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that takes place so often in that, which is what we've been talking about, is the demonization. I can't tell you how many parents get really racked up, even parents that seem to have their head on their shoulders, when another parent will overtly tell the children that you need to tell call my new partner mom or dad. And mother or father will just lose it. And it's like, why are you losing it over that? There's two possibilities here, maybe three, that this is going to evolve in. Number one, they're going to attach to that new person. They're going to have a good relationship with them. And that's good because, they're seeing a good, solid relationship with your ex's new partner. And that can be healthy. Number two is they're just going to acquiesce, but the bond between you and your child, if you've done anything to keep that relationship decent, is never going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And by getting up in arms about it and making a lot of noise around them not doing that only creates more tension for the child, and they get stuck. So what's the problem here? It's just a place of somebody trying to take some control and utilize that leverage to keep the children close to them. And that's simply indicative of their attachment style. And, what we're going to talk about in our next podcast around, the components of conflict. So let's just stop for a while and make a different choice in how we engage in that conversation, because everybody's looking for traction in the conflict. And we've talked about personality types and personality disorders of how they stay connected through conflict.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's by just finding whatever they can to make noise and to get you to react. And this is a hot button for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
This is a huge hot button, and we have to not go press it. We have to, just step back. This is part of the reason that when I have clients come in that are just starting the process, I tell them, I said, one, don't don't go out and get involved in another relationship right now, because you're not ready and it's going to be a problem. And the second piece is if you do not let that other parent know that you are in it, and stay away from introducing the kids to that new partner until things are really stabilized in your world, that they're stabilized with this new partner, that that they're going to be around for some time to come, and that they are aware of what's coming their way. Because I divorced somebody who has, some of these tendencies, and I'm going to do everything that I can to protect you from that, to shield you from that. But your job as the new partner is to stay in the background. Don't enter into this conversation, because it's, essentially not your battle. And if you make it your battle, this is going to get worse.
Yeah. Yeah. It's never super smooth, is it?
Life,
the introducing of the new person. I mean, my situation, I waited probably 2.5 years since I ended the situation with my ex, but we hadn't. That's not when the divorce started, right?
Right.
So technically, the divorce started a week after I met my girlfriend, who I've
Right.
now been with for 2 years and 2 months or whatever it is.
Right.
I did not introduce my girlfriend to the children for 4 or 5 months, which some people say is too quick. But what you just mentioned, you don't introduce them, don't do it until right?
Right.
It's some sort of solid or whatever. I'm a one woman man. I don't play around. So I knew at that point, and we just went out and played arcade games on New Year's Eve. So it wasn't like a super big deal. This is hard. I'm guessing, actually, I thought this would be important to mention. You said there's like 70% of divorces that kind of, sail through the system because both people are healthy and they just they feel the pain and they're like, this isn't great, but whatever. But there's
Right.
30% of them that are high conflict,
Right.
very possibly due to one or both sides having a personality disorder. Of that 30%, there's some percentage, you can tell me whether you think it's high or low, but there's some percentage that the divorce is because they found someone new. There's already a new person.
For sure.
Right? I mean,
Right.
Adultery, unsatisfaction, and looking for, having found someone else. That's a major part of why people separate. And we don't have to talk about whether that's moral or immoral or not. It's just there might be somebody new in one of the partner's lives or the children's lives from the get-go, right?
Right. Right.
And
And that's
there they are.
troubling. That's troubling because it creates something with the children going forward that will really ring their bell for years to come. Like I said, I was talking to this friend of mine today who's still dealing with daughters in their 40s that are still holding grudges because he left. And it was a marriage that wasn't a great marriage, that there was problems on both sides, but the children have demonized him for leaving, and it's had a long-lasting effect. And how do you move into your life and navigate that one when part of the setup for that is the parent on the other side, demonizes that parent for leaving and or the way they left because they left for somebody else or there was somebody right on the doorstep when they left. And whether it was true or not, the concept that comes through the victim statement of you left us for somebody else, you left us, and this person is responsible for that, becomes the basis for the conversation of the demonization of that new partner.
And I mean, a little bit about my situation and my girlfriend's. I have an issue with the phrase "you left us" because that's never true. You left dad or you left mom is accurate, right?
Well, it isn't exactly accurate. It isn't exactly accurate from a standpoint of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really an important component because when that parent leaves the house, they left.
Mm-hmm.
And when there is another person over there, the appearance is that you left us for that person, whether it was 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, a year down the line, you're still out and we're still over here. And that statement, that perspective is coming from the victimization of the parent that was being left.
Right.
And them projecting that victimization onto the kids, because here's a reality that when one parent leaves the house, there is an appearance that they left the family, even if we've got a 50-50 shared and those children come over to the other parent. There is a perspective, a look at this is how it took place. Whether that's accurate or not,
yep,
it's still that look, right?
Yeah. I mean, it could be, let me exaggerate it, right? Real life example, it could be the parent being left, filed divorce paperwork, started the divorce,
Mhm.
and put all of the parent who was leaving all their stuff out on the front yard and changed the locks.
Right.
And yet still is able to get the kids to receive a message, your parent left you.
Well, and not only that, I kicked them out because they were rotten and they did this and that and everything, and that brings the kids in and into, we have to stay together and we have to do this because it's only us.
Yeah.
We can't depend on anybody anymore, and that seeds that long-term break in the bond with the parent who's being, demonized in it.
There's some weird behaviors. I've talked to you about it before. There's some weird behaviors for the parent who's left, who's rejected, who's told, I don't want you anymore, and someone leaves. There's some strange reactive behaviors that don't necessarily go well with good parenting, or they're not super healthy.
Well, they're not. And, it boils into that victim role that so many people play in the divorce process. Even the person that's leaving oftentimes will play a victim role, that other parent was in some way demonized, and they'll bring the children in the conversations that I left because your other parent was a drunk, drug addict, was out cheating, whatever the pieces were. And that puts the child in the middle of that conversation of, this is, why I left, rather than just staying with, yeah, this wasn't working and I had to go and I'm still here for you and I'm still taking care of business.
Yeah.
And if in a healthy breakup, the other parent would go, yeah, this wasn't working and we decided to break up, and this other parent of yours is just a sweet human being and you need to stay in their world. But through the demonization, they will create things from their own history that they project onto that person that may not have happened, but because of their history and their way of dealing with it, this is what they see. So it's an ongoing craziness, right?
Yeah, and my heart with our podcast is to help as many people as possible, not to look as good as I can. So I'm going to try to be candid again, right? I think I accidentally did that in the beginning when the kids were, in my divorce, there was some religious and sort of judgmental elements to it. The kids were like, you're wrong to leave. It's a sin. You're going to hell. Divorce is wrong. That whole thing they were being taught, right?
Mm-hmm.
In an effort to help my kids or be clear or whatever you want to call it, my heart was pure. But in my conversations about why I left, I believe I probably did more damage or some damage or badmouthed their mom. I was trying to explain, like, no, there's another side of the story. It's not easy.
No.
It's just not.
No.
It's a mess.
Right.
They used to say in the Christian world, it's like gluing two pieces of plywood together or particle board, and then you rip them apart, and neither one of them looks the same, right?
Right.
And I don't know whether that's true or not true. I think divorce is a part of the world. I think ending relationships that aren't working is actually good. So I don't know if I go that far, but I would agree that we're probably not the same again, right? It's probably helpful for kids to know. It's probably helpful for kids to not have the expectation that there'll never be a divorce and be so shocked by it. But it is a change. It's different. We're going to be different people going forward, right?
Right. We're conditioned by our relationships, and for our children to know that each relationship that we have is going to condition them in a positive or negative fashion. And I'm going to come back and just say not positive or negative. They're just going to be conditioned. There's going to be something that changes in their psyche as it pertains to, that particular bonding.
Yep.
And that's part of our parenting process. That's part of where we teach kids to adapt and to move through their relationships no matter what they are, because they're going to be painful, they're going to be joyful, there's going to be growth, there's going to be something that comes out of that. And that's the healthy piece that we want to bring our kids forward. What I want to do here, because we're gonna drag on and on with this, I want to make sure that we deliver a couple of things here that I think are really important as takeaways from all of this. Can I move us in that direction, Charlie?
Yeah, because it's not like you and I would ever drag on and do an hour-long podcast.
right.
Ever.
Yeah. So what I want to bring into the conversation is we know that all this is going on and we see the effects to all of this, but what do we do when this happens? How do we stop the invasion of this ongoing conflict into our new relationship? Or how do we keep ourselves from invading the other party's new relationship? And how do we stabilize the kids in both directions of this? Because sometimes, Charlie, somebody gets into a new relationship and they get into a relationship with somebody that's really a little bit off. They're just not a great partner to our kids, or there is this piece where they're bringing in a different parenting style that is causing problems for the children, and we want it to stop, or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
So what we've got to really be able to do is to put some things in place so this doesn't occur. And part of that is really understanding the concepts that we've been driving consistently in these podcasts are around disengagement and around parallel parenting. How do you downregulate your own nervous system when somebody wants to have a new partner in their relationship with your children that you perceive as not a good person, not a good parent, not a good role model? What do you do with that?
Right.
Right? The answer to that is nothing.
Yeah.
And that's a problem, right?
I'm guessing from knowing you, the answer is you don't do any sort of telling your ex how they should do this or that, or like being authoritative. The answer is when the kids are with you, be a great example and do a great job.
Right. So I see people all of the time that are in the arena of being abused by the other person's new partner. They will sit there and they will go, this is not my ex's writing coming through this Our Family Wizard note. This is their partner doing all of the conversation. What do I do?
Right.
Because they want to blow up, they want to engage, they want to go at that and tell them to stop, and all of the same defensive mechanisms that come in with some of the things that we've talked about in our earlier podcast are right here. So what do? Same thing, nothing. We don't step in. What happens when those same comments, those same invasions, those same attacks are coming at our new partner? What do we do there?
Nothing, I'm guessing.
It's the same story, but this is harder because our partner is looking at us to protect them. Mm-hmm. That's part of being in a relationship, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This person has got my back. And why aren't you getting in there? Why aren't you making them stop? Is all of that's going on again. So what I do with a lot, and I did this with you, is I encourage the people going through my course that want to learn about this stuff to bring in their partner. And I give them a 50% break on that when they come in, because I think it is so important for that new partner to have this conversation as well, to really understand that the disengagement is the only way through it, and that for them to really understand that even though the gun is pointed at them, it's not personal.
Mm-hmm.
The gun's really pointed at you, the ex, right? The ex is pointing the gun at you, and that you aren't taking it personal because you know that it's not your issue, it's theirs. So we're coming in and really trying to reorient to the reality of this isn't personal. This is just part of the bond breaking. This is part of the personality type or disorder that's taking place. And we're going to rotate back up to the conversation that we've had in earlier podcasts about not demonizing that partner.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there they are again. They're going off. Huh. Let's go take a walk.
Take the dog for a walk.
Right.
Everybody get a dog. That's the counsel, right?
Dogs are great. Horses are good. Cats
Horses.
are all right.
You brought horses into it.
And cats.
What do you mean cats? You have a cat?
No, I don't have a cat.
What are you talking about cats?
Some people are into cats.
I know. We have a guinea pig that makes everybody sneeze in my house. We're going to have to get rid of it. Animals are actually soothing and therapeutic, believe it or not.
They're awesome.
I'm going to try to get on an airplane with a emotional therapy horse and see what they do.
That would be an interesting one, wouldn't it? This is my therapy animal, man.
Exactly. And I mean, if you're the sane one, let's just put it that way. If you're the sane one and your ex has a new partner, just talk to your kids in a way that is edifying. Just say, you know what? People love. Partnership is good. Companionship is good, right? This is to be expected. Like your dad or your mom, I want them to find somebody that is good for them and brings out the best in them and makes them happy. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's new, but that's not a new mom or a new dad. It's just a new partner for your mom or dad, right?
But that child is acting out on that new partner.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with that when your child is being abusive to your new partner? What do you do with that?
I would think if we're the opposite, well, let's see. That seems to me to create a great parenting opportunity to have a conversation about that. And just like, what's going on? Like, what are you feeling? Like, why do you feel the need to attack this person? Or do you want me to be, do you have something against me moving on? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, I want to stay away from making the conversation about you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's a trap.
Okay.
And it's the idea of, don't you want me to have a new partner, or do you have a problem with me having a new partner? Is maybe a little bit better of the conversation. The what is really happening for you in this is a better conversation. Trying to find a way, this is something that I am really adamant about, is to give the children a place to process this stuff.
Yeah.
And most children have a problem processing divorce with the parent. They don't have the ability to speak out and tell that parent what it is that's concerning them or bothering them, oftentimes because they're afraid that it's going to create a bigger breach with that parent, or they have shame about talking back or voicing because of whatever parenting style may have come forward in their lives. So this is a place where I really believe that children need to have, at least for some period of time, a therapist to work with through the divorce process. Whether it's a high conflict piece or not, there's a breach that's taking place. And whether that is a conversation that's happening with them, with a counselor at church or a counselor at school or a counselor that you hire to work with them. And sometimes it's helpful to have a counselor that's willing to bring the parent in to have some of the conversations with the child after they've landed some of this stuff, so the child can express it directly. And it's incredibly important that the parent doesn't take anything that's coming out of that child's mouth personally. That this is just what they're trying to process, and they need to be heard. They need to be validated in those feelings, whether they're accurate necessarily or not.
Yeah. So what else would you need to say on this subject? We've got the new partners coming into people's lives. It's super normal. It's probably going to happen, right? It's either the reason for the breakup or it's going to happen soon, right? What else do we want to say, or any practical advice for someone? Let's say somebody it's their ex who found someone new, and they're stressed out about it, or the kids are upset with that person's parenting style or some of their introduction to their lives. What practical advice could we give them?
Well, I think the practical advice in that, goes back to the conversation we had about the kids, is just really working through your own grief process and having a therapist or somebody that they can talk to and work through. And short of that, just stepping back and coming into the constant reality of this is what's going to happen here. I'm working with a client right now who's, got a parent on the other side that's got an abusive relationship, and they're caught deeply. I've got more than one client that's going through this. I've got several, but the fight continues over trying to protect the children in arenas that the system isn't necessarily going to see and or do. So coming back to their own parenting, coming back to how they can enlighten their children about the world, and not demonizing the other parent or the other parent's new partner, but giving them the skill sets to make good decisions at the earliest possible age, to have the kids grow up a little faster than we want them to, but knowing that doing that is in their best interest long term, and to create an environment that they can thrive in and not be pulled away from whatever healthy bonding is appropriate with that new parent and their partner.
Yeah. It's an important thing. It's the probability that kids are going to have either a new stepmom or stepdad is pretty high, right?
A new stepmom, a new stepdad, or a new long-term partner in their parents' life, whether that is a marriage or just a partnership that takes place.
Yeah.
Well, and to have that be okay, to stay out of the moral conversations and ramifications of what comes along with that set of judgment.
Yeah. Well, I have a story, I have a conversation I can use to wrap this up if we're okay ending this one. We good?
Absolutely. Let's go.
So I want everyone out there who's listening to, stay steadfast and have hope. Just keep doing the right things. Keep listening to the show. Keep applying what we're teaching. I have seen in a very short time, probably 2, 3, 4 months, one of my ex's children go from, she was actually the person that said, you committed the unpardonable sin, you effed up, you this, I don't even want a relationship with you, to go from that to living in our home, thanking us for our hospitality, and even the other night saying, you guys are amazing parents, saying that to her mom, and then me, who's not even married to her mom yet, right? The consistency of doing what's right and loving your kids and trying to stay steadfast and just do good seems to me that it eventually sends a message. Any thoughts on that?
I think that that's absolutely the right way to look at this, Charlie. It's that parenting style, that just being steadfast, being able to take the hits where you need to take the hits and just keep moving forward, because the kids will process through and they will see their connectedness with you, and typically things will shift in the directions of health for them, because again, the kids are always going to lean toward the health given every opportunity.
Just be like gravity. Be consistent. Anybody can talk bad about gravity and say that people fly off and they get burned up by the sun, but the reality is it's not true. So just create a new reality, create a baseline, create a truth that is that you are good, you're loving, you're an amazing person, and then whatever the other person says about you, if you're acting that way, the children in their own minds will probably go, well, that's not really true. Okay, dad's mad or mom's mad or whatever. But all right, let's wrap it up. Brooke, the new partners, people coming into their lives, it's always difficult, but it is doable. And if you're the one bringing the new partner, there's probably some helpful conversations you can have and ways to do it well and not do well. If there's another partner in your ex's life, probably the number one rule is do not be talking bad about them no matter what, and be helping your children to understand that this is fairly normal, right?
This is normal stuff. Just something new to be navigated. Charlie, thanks for continuing to do this. This is a milestone for us. This is our 10th one. Let's keep it going. I'm appreciating everything that you're bringing into the conversation.
Absolutely. Number 10 is in the books. Guys, tune in next week for number 11. We're going to talk about assessing conflict and what to do in conflict and how to make it better, how not to participate or inflate it, but to kind of calm it down. There will be some conflict, but we want to make sure that your kids experience as little as possible. Brooke Olson, Charlie Jewett, signing off. Thank you guys so much. Hang in there. Bye-bye. Brooke, people don't have to wait until Friday mornings to get more content. If this is something that's helpful for them, right? This isn't the first time you've broadcast anything or recorded anything or put anything out there in the world. What are the other ways people can get the help more aggressively or speed up their recovery process? What materials are available for people right now?
Well, I've written a book called The Black Hole of High Conflict, and it's available on Amazon and Kindle.
Great.
And everything that we're talking about is really compressed and put into there. So this is a really good starter place to get in and get your mind working and to see what these concepts are about and how to start to apply them. The other place that I think that is valuable is to go to our website and look at some of the blog articles that I've written. Those are available there as well. They go into some of these other arenas, and that's at www.highconflict.net. So the book, the website are also really good places to get the material. And also we have classes. We have high conflict diversion program classes that you can get into and get some one-on-one help with this as well.
And you know me, I'm aggressive. Whatever I want to become good at or learn, I find someone who's good at it and pay them and hire them and shorten my learning curve. What if somebody just wants your help? Somebody says, Brooke has this information. He's good at something I'm not good at yet, and I want to work with him. Do you have any type of coaching or consultations or anything like that?
Absolutely. I do one-on-one coaching for custody cases. I help people get ready for family court services. If you've got that in your community, I work with attorneys and clients to help them with managing and strategically setting them up to have more successful cases as well.
And how do they reach out? You want them to just go to the website or email or phone, or what's the best way for them to reach out, raise their hand, and say, I need some help?
They can email me. My direct email is brooke@highconflict.net. That's BROOK at highconflict, HIGH, conflict.net.
Perfect. That's everything everybody would need to get some help, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, Charlie.